Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about Pluto in Capricorn, squaring the South Node in Libra, the North Node in Aries. I'm going to be talking about the Venus retrograde that we're currently in. And I'm also going to be helping you kind of understand the emotional and psychological aspects of this current new moon and full moon cycle that we're in, this particular being the full moon, and how to grow into these experiences, how to allow these experiences to evolve your current state of consciousness, and how these transits are really pushing a deep metamorphosis within each of us. So that's the plan today. That's the agenda. I really hope that that's piquing your interest. I have been thinking a lot about this Venus retrograde at the moment and thinking about how I can support you, how I can give you some of my own thoughts and insights around how to work consciously with this Venus retrograde. So that's what I'm going to do in this video as well. Really talk about that. So what you need to do, a couple of things in order for this video to really land for you is you need to see this video as something to digest over a long period of time. Okay. So this video has got lots of information in it. I'm going to share with you lots of things that you need to think about. And so use this video as something that you're digesting over and over. So come back to it at a different point, reflect on what I'm sharing, see it in your own life, be in dialogue with the suggestions that I offer or the insights or the thoughts that I present, be in dialogue with how that is materializing and playing out internally for you in your life. Okay, that's how this will work. Okay, so come back to this video in ways to let it nourish you more than just in this moment. So it's going to be very dense, as they always are, but come back to it and let it feed you consistently, okay? 2, in order for this video to really have impact for you, it's good that you get your astrology chart and look at it, look at where Pluto is currently in your chart through transit, right? Is it moving through your 11th house? Is it moving through your 10th house? Is it moving through your 4th? Okay? And look at where the nodes are, all right? Unfortunately, you need a bit of basic understanding of astrology to be able to synthesize some of the insights I share. I can't do that with every single person's house system, but I can try to give you at least the landscape of what you could be seeing and thinking about. Okay, so you need to superimpose how that person lands in your chart. But it's good to take your astrology chart along with this video and see if you can see the connections. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the case. Sometimes you can just know that these are things that are happening in your life. But one of the best ways to let this video nourish you, give you something of value, is to see how this is playing out in your own life, right? That's my purpose here. That's my vision. That's my intention, is to communicate this to you in a way so that when you take this into your own life, you can see where these experiences are happening and you can allow yourself to kind of emotionally understand, okay, this is where this is taking place, and you can move forward or you can grow from it. Okay. All right. So, what should I start off with? Okay, I'm gonna start off with the nodes, the South and North Node, and I'm going to talk about Pluto. Okay. So as you know, Pluto is now 28 degrees of Capricorn. It is forming a square to the South and North Node. The South Node represents pre-existing patterns of behavior that feel familiar to us because they are psychologically experienced. We emotionally relate to it, and so this is an habitual pattern. The North Node represents an opportunity to try something different that creates a kind of balance within your South Node. So think of the opposite sign of your South Node as a place where you can do some stuff, you can experiment some stuff, and it creates a kind of balance in your South Node energy. So in this case, the North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So for everyone on the planet, in different ways, depending on what culture you live in, and depending on where you are in the world, you'd need to be able to superimpose that on for yourself. But everywhere in the world, with South Node and Libra currently, we are going to be now starting to address relationship themes. Okay? And most importantly, because Pluto is sitting at 28 degrees of Capricorn, and because Pluto has already moved into Aquarius, but has now moved back into Capricorn, the theme that Pluto is bringing up is finalize the things that you need to emotionally mature from, Because once I'm out of Capricorn and into Aquarius, we're not doing this emotional thing again. And if you've got your stuff sorted out, excellent. If not, that's okay. But you have missed the opportunity to kind of develop some sense of emotional mastery. Okay. That's a heavy thing to carry. Okay. So here is why it's important to understand that this Pluto squaring these nodes is very, very significant for the emotional welfare of your internal space and how that will then play out for the rest of your life. Now the attention is about relationships, right? So Pluto is coming to your relationships and it's asking you the question. It says, hey, so within the last couple of sort of like month and a half, where have you noticed that things have felt a little bit extreme? Where have you noticed that things have felt a little bit out of balance? Where have you noticed that there is certain needs or certain patterns that you are starting to realize feel outdated, that feel not in alignment with where you are currently and emotionally for yourself right now? So those will pop up for us. And my suggestion to you is to kind of examine where these situations, where these relationships still reflect an alignment with where your current needs are, where your current relationship to yourself is. We have really changed over the last 10 years emotionally. A lot of people have been doing a tremendous amount of inner work. A lot of people have been addressing their inner emotional state and trying to understand what it means to emotionally regulate, trying to understand what emotional freedom looks like from the perspective of breaking 3 extra burdens, carrying emotional weight of other people, learning how to develop boundaries, and so on and so forth. The list can go on. And many of you will relate to this in some way, shape, or form. So this emotional work that you've been doing on yourself has drifted you to a different part of your personality. It's drifted you into a place where you might not even recognize the older part of you because it's become outdated. It's become irrelevant, redundant. This newer version of yourself might feel more emotionally free. And so right now, you may look at the way that you formed relationships in the past and gone, that seems to be where this pattern is still playing out and it needs to be updated. So we're all getting an opportunity right now with Pluto squaring the South Node, squaring the North Node, to do 2 things. 1, to be able to address any outdated relationship patterns that feel misaligned with you, to address them and to say to them, this is where this needs to end, this is where this process is completing. And most likely, I suspect, in a lot of you that you're watching this, is that will look like a lack of tolerance for things that feel not good for you. A lack of tolerance, an end of the line. It's like, this is where I don't accept these types of relationship patterns anymore. This is where my boundaries now exist. I'm not going to tolerate that, etc. This is where I exist or stand on certain subjects, situations, and so on. So there's a repositioning of your way of relating, and that will naturally bring up where old patterns no longer are relevant. And the North Node in Aries is saying, hey, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to consider acting in a way that's more in alignment with what is real for you, what's alive for you, where you are right now within your life. And that may look like deciding that a certain relationship pattern is not okay anymore. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to choose to engage in that. Whatever that is for you, notice that there's a binary between this is where I'm not tolerating it anymore because I feel it's become obsolete and this pattern is no, I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want to, I refuse. And here's a part of me that wants to step into something new and do a completely fresh thing. I want to remove myself emotionally from the dependencies and expectations from the past and these expectations from society and these expectations from what I should do and what I should think and how I should be, to essentially address all of these. This is number 2. And to ask yourself the question, is this really how I want to live my life? With the South Node in Libra as it moves through the North Node in Aries, we have now reached a point where a lot of Pluto and Libra souls that were born 72 to 83, 84 have come to realize that a big part of their life has been through dependency. an over-externalization of your needs, a sacrificing of yourself, a betrayal or abandonment of your own independence or personal direction. We've just now reached a point in the collective where those that are doing emotional work have also realized that their relationship to themselves has become a top priority, and that then informs the way that we actually define relationships going forward. And a lot of that will look like the breakdown of emotional dependency, emotional reliance on other people, asking other people to emotionally address our own stuff, and not knowing that boundaries are healthy patterns of keeping everybody safe in a way, but also creating very stable and healthy ways of interacting with each other. But along the road, part of Pluto and Capricorn was to help us understand that when we do establish boundaries, when we do work on ourselves, right, that we will come into emotional betrayal, emotional abandonment, emotional loss. As in, when we have placed our boundaries in the environment, it was perceived, framed, seen as something that was negative. And so there's an internalized sense of yourself that says, well, if I do think of myself and my boundaries and what's important for me, then I'm being rude, I'm being inconsiderate, I'm not thinking about myself, etc. So a lot of you that maybe resonate with what I'm trying to say here, you'll understand that this Pluto square the nodes is bringing to the surface a collective need to do this, right? This is where the collective is now catching up to this process. And for those of you that have already done this work, you will see that that North Node in Aries is really inviting you to actually step into a completely new direction for yourself, to be present for what's real and alive for you right now, and to be able to give yourself that freedom to not have to be on the shoulds and expected, and this is what defines success bandwagon, right? The new moon in Aquarius that sits here, moon in 9 degrees Aquarius, sun in Leo in the 5th house, acts in 2 ways, okay? So I'm going to go to the chart. I'm going to show you how this is working with the Venus retrograde. So I'm going to talk about Venus retrograde now. I'm going to talk about how the Venus retrograde is supporting what I'm telling you and sharing with you about Pluto square the nodes and the complete annihilation of all unexpected where we formed attachments to things that now we've realized we have zero interest in wanting to form attachments to, and we're giving ourselves the freedom to be able to say, you know what, I don't need to do this. Like, just because that's what's important for you and that's it doesn't mean I should do that kind of thing, right? There's an individuation process that's happening here. So that's what I want to tie in, what I've shared with you right now and how this Venus retrograde is supporting that process. So let's do that. Okay, so now you can see here that there is the chart, and right at the top over here, you've got Moon in Aquarius. It's just crossed Pluto. So we're definitely going to be carrying the heavy emotional weight of this Pluto transit over the last 2 days. Here you see the sun, 9 degrees of Leo, and that 9 degree is squaring Jupiter. So it's been squaring Jupiter, the sun there, and it's now formed that opposition to the moon. And the moon has crossed Pluto over the last 2 days. So that's a significant aspect there. As you can see, Venus forming the square to Uranus, okay, and then Venus in conjuncting Pluto and Venus in conjuncting Neptune. So this finger of God, this Yod, is a very important one. I'm going to dive into that for you right now and how it relates to the Uranus aspect, okay? So let's talk Venus retrograde, okay? So Venus retrograde has been in Leo. Let me sort of establish the foundations here. There's one element of the Venus retrograde that speaks to healing the parts of ourselves that we have lost our innocence due to an event or a situation or circumstance that was part of growing up in life, but we may have not understood that as a part of maturation or growing up in life, okay? So I'll give you an example, right? In tribes or in earlier parts of our civilizations and in different parts of other civilizations, there would be this concept of a rite of passage, okay? And one of the things about rite of passages is that they allow us to go through an emotional experience that transforms us, that when we come out on the other side, we have a deep connection to the actual reality of that transformation. It allows for deep authenticity to be present, because now we actually communicate from the experience versus the theory of it, okay? And it also gives us an ability to be able to connect with something of an emotional maturation process. Oftentimes, when we go through rites of passage, we go through experiences of alignment, crisis, some form of tragedy, and also a loss of innocence, which is where we trade our relationship to the big world as this beautiful, almighty, God-loving baby in the womb, kind of everything is beautiful, gospel nature, to, oh, life is actually pretty difficult. Not every time things work in our favor. And a lot of the times, like, you need to be present and awake to realize that it's tough, right? You can't control everything and make it idealistic. You know, we're not 3 anymore, right? There are things that as an adult you have to come to terms with, right? And that process of maturation requires a loss of innocence. Now, in the rite of passage process, a big part of the rite of passage is actually going through a loss of innocence in a kind of healthy way. So it's coming into contact with a version of reality that's ideal, which would be more of our kind of Neptunian escapism process. Ideally, this would be great for me, right? Every child has a dream of, you know, oh, I would really love to have this car. It costs 3 million, Dad. Well, that's a great desire in nature, but it's not available right now. To a child, that's a difficult thing, because it's like, how do you communicate the complexity of life to somebody that is still trying to make sense of the world in a very small way? Okay. The point I'm trying to make here is that there is a younger version of ourselves that has more of an idealistic view of the world, and there's an older version of ourselves that has gone through the betrayal of a friend, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a parent, the firing of a job, the trauma of COVID-19, okay? Somebody dying of cancer, okay? Life is going to be there in ways that is going to remove some of that idealism. And the way that we emotionally prepare for life in these things is to come into contact with progressively losing our innocence to things. Okay, this is also deeply connected with virginity as well. So this Venus retrograde in Leo, square Uranus, making an in conjunct to Neptune and making an in conjunct to Pluto. There's the Pluto archetype, there's the Neptune archetype, there's the Venus archetype. The childlike part of us is this Superman hero personality. The Neptune piece is, the Capricorn piece is the harshness of reality. And the Neptune piece is the idealization of something. It's the innocence of something, right? How could mom swear at me? Okay. But reality is that when emotions show up, sometimes we get angry and sometimes somebody just says, you're an idiot. Okay. Ideally, it would be like, oh, please don't call me that. This is what I mean. Capricorn teaches us to become emotionally resilient, but you can't become emotionally resilient if you're afraid of getting stuck into life. So we live these lives of avoidance, of getting through experiences because we're afraid of failure, we're afraid of getting it wrong, we're afraid of X, Y, Z. And that fundamentally comes down to a piece where we're still infantile in a part of ourselves because we're afraid of the outside world. And that's the job of the parent, ideally, is to be able to develop a resilient child that can deal with the shocks and traumas of life and to be able to overcome them by understanding their independence. That is what the Venus retrograde is about. It's the realization that, one, in order for us to pass the test of Pluto at Capricorn at 28 degrees, is to realize the Capricorn lesson, which is emotional mastery. It's the ability to not get knocked off your feet over the first drama that comes along. It's to be able to realize that, yeah, life is tough and we can deal with this. And if there's a situation, we can believe in ourselves. This is literally the manifestation of how you mature from your Saturn, which is the childlike part of you, the Saturn piece that is young and asking everybody for help and telling them to do this, to, you know what, I've got my own agency. I can go and do this, right? I'm adult now. I'm responsible for myself and I take on the consequences of that too. Like I was saying, parents take on the consequences of a child's mistake because the child does not have the capacity to carry the guilt or the shame or any form of the weight that comes from the Capricorn response. So therefore, parents would protect them by saying, hey, honey, it's okay. The glass broke. It's not your fault. These things happen, right? the best thing to do is to be mindful of the glass around it. Let's clean it up over here. These things happen, we move on. But at a later point in time, let's say, for instance, you act in a way as an adult that harms your best friend or does of the sorts, and the best friend says, it's okay, it's cool, don't worry about it. You never actually got the opportunity to feel an inner sense of reflection that leads to an adjustment that says, you know what, hey, I really understood that this action was out of line. I know that it hurt you in some way, shape, or form, and I'm trying my best to kind of make sense of it in a better way. I'm super sorry. Capricorn, right? Emotional resilience. We're not afraid of our emotions. We're not asking the other person to take the blame for us. And what we're also doing, Pluto square the nodes in Libra, Aries, is the capacity to be able to then take on less dependency on external forces as a way to nourish or nurture the abandoned parts of yourself. So the Venus in Leo is the realization that we all carry within us, throughout our experience in life, some form of initial betrayal, abandonment, or loss that has closed our heart, and that experience informs your ability to then navigate the world through this woundedness. And if that woundedness is open and present in your emotional field, you will then try and control the external situation or circumstances to be able to not have that wound hurt. And the healing potential that's held within this inconjunct between Pluto, Capricorn, and Pisces is to come into a reconnection with that inner child. So throughout Pluto through Capricorn, and this is what Jeffrey Wolf Green said when Neptune and Uranus were transiting through Capricorn, so all of my Pluto and Scorpios that are out there that are still trying to gain the love of the parents that is absent in yourself, you're realizing that what you're actually healing is your relationship to your inner child. And part of that actually means accepting that the abandonment or the betrayal of that parent itself, even though it sucks in so many ways, now as an adult, you have to be able to find a way to resolve it within yourself. Otherwise, you will emotionally displace all of those feelings and emotions externally and always ask for help, therefore disabling your agency. Chiron and Aries, first house, North Node and Aries in the first house. So again, coming back to this archetypal structure here, this new moon and full moon energy, particularly the full moon, of course, we're talking about it here, that the moon sitting at in Aquarius 9 degrees, is the ability to emotionally disconnect and then observe where your emotional attachments lie. Ask yourself the question, what is the root of these emotional attachments? And then start to process how those emotional attachments force a connection to an external authority or an external situation that needs to be controlled in order to be able to for you to feel safe emotionally. And to be able to address that inner part of yourself that has at some point had its innocence taken away, whether it be through trauma, whether it be through a lack of the parent's acknowledgement, whether it be through whatever, and to then be that parent that feels absent. And when you step into that role and you start to allow yourself to feel and acknowledge these parts of yourself that have been hurt, Leo comes in, Venus retrograde, coming back into the inner emotional needs that we have relative to self-verification. In other words, to verify that this part of you has been wounded, and then to address whatever that is. So you need to go on a healing experience, right? If you need to do some somatic healing, you need to talk to somebody to process through that loss, to come to terms with it, to deal with that grief, so that then you can actualize the potential of Pluto squaring the South Node, which is to emotionally eliminate all psychological and emotional attachments that have come before, so that you can feel free of inner dependencies that hold you in a sort of binding. And that's the answer to this full moon in Aquarius. Liberation does not come from using the word, it comes from emotionally understanding the core pattern that has caused you the pain and suffering that leads to the attachment that is now binding you to some situation, that the only way to free yourself from that is to realize that that piece is emotionally unhealed within yourself, and that is the ultimate lesson of Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. Yes. Thank you very much for hearing me out on this video. I really hope that it hit straight and to a place that is real and alive within yourself. For me, I just want to quickly announce a few things, and we'll announce it later on, but between the 6th and the 8th of October 2023, I'm very excited. I'm going to be doing a lecture as part of an Evolutionary Astrology community. So the Jeffrey Wolf Green School of Evolutionary Astrology is hosting an online virtual summit that's going to be from the 6th to the 8th. and I'll be doing a full lecture on how Saturn and Pisces, as well as the planetary nodes of Saturn, as well as the planetary nodes of Pluto, are all affecting the evolution of our collective, but also how you as a person can understand your individual karma. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I will be releasing some information on that to join that lecture. I'm going to be part of a lecture group of the best evolutionary astrologers that are out there. So I'm very excited for this to be a place that if you're really serious about EA, if you want to learn about it in that way, this is going to be a place full of dedicated EA astrologers doing lectures on it as well. So I will post that information in another video. I'm going to be doing one on Saturn. I'll show you where that is, the dates, and how you can book in and buy your ticket as well. And we've also got a discount code, so I'll be providing that to you. So I'm just kind of giving you guys a heads up. I'm really excited about it. I'd love to see many of you there in terms of what the lectures are. And so yeah, announcing that. And then I have one more space left in my Evolutionary Astrology Mentorship Program at the moment. And I would really love to take on somebody else who's willing to take their astrology from self-study to becoming a professional astrologer, or at least running your business in some way, shape, or form, doing professional readings. And if this is something that you feel that you want to do, if you're serious about it, and you really want to take it to the next level, I'm going to leave a link in the description. There's a little form that you need to fill out so that I can get a good idea of where you're at. And then what we'll do is we'll have a call and we'll have a better conversation. And if there is an opportunity to work together in a mentorship role, then we'll set that up, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'll also put that in the link there as well. But for me, in terms of this video, thank you very much for listening, guys. I really hope that you had a fantastic full moon experience. I hope that this has given you food for thought, and I look forward to you in another video. Bye.